I'm going to show you how I make my chili that my husband said, how I make my chili that my husband said was the best chili I've ever made in my entire life. So, the first ingredient, of course, is the meat. This is 4 pounds of ground meat. I'm making a double batch since my husband said it was so absolutely delicious. It's fine, you don't have to turn it down. So, this is 2 pounds of ground meat, beef, 80/20, and 2 pounds of ground turkey. I've done ground pork and ground turkey and ground beef, all ground turkey. It's just kind of depending on what you want to do. Please remember that ground turkey has a different color than ground beef when it's cooked, and it's not as crumbly. You get larger chunks in the chili. I found mixing them is the best way to go. The ground pork, adding ground pork wasn't bad, but it's just not necessary, and ground pork can get expensive. Also, to season it, I use seasoned salt. For per pound, you should use anywhere from half a tablespoon to a teaspoon of salt. This is 3 teaspoons for the 4 pounds, so I did a little bit shy of a teaspoon for each. When you season it, though, season it before you put it in the pan to cook. The meat will be the last thing that you put in the pan. You want to make sure it's seasoned before. Normally what I do is I sprinkle some seasoning on the top and then kind of fold it over. I'm doing two things, mixing in the ground beef and the ground turkey together, and then I'm also kind of fold it over, mixing in the seasoning through all the meat, so you don't get seasoned on the outside and one side seasoned meat, which is never very tasty. Also, let your meat come to room temperature. I know a lot of people are scared of food poisoning and stuff like that, but room temperature meat, it'll help render the fat out, which will add flavor to the chili, and also make it easier to skim the chili off the top after it's the grease and the fat off the top after it's cooled. What else? Oh, yeah, that's it. That'll be the last thing we're doing. Next, I have the vegetables. I have diced tomatoes. This is two 14.5 ounce cans. Well, this is just one of them, but I add two. And this is 2 chopped onions and 2 chopped bell peppers. Add the chopped onions and bell peppers first, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Season them with a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper. Let them cook to the translucent. I'm not trying to saute. I'm just going to cook down some. And then I add the tomatoes and all of this seasoning. This is 5 tablespoons of chili powder, good chili powder, a tablespoon and a half of paprika. What else is in here? And a quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. With that, the seasoning salt and the salt and pepper, all of the layers will be seasoned. Now, after I add the tomatoes have a lot of water in them. I add the water, but I let it cook down for quite a bit, almost until they're deep, dark burgundy brown to looks almost like tomato paste. And then I add the meat at the very end, and I'll add about a cup of water to help it cook through, and I just kind of stir it together and let it cook. It doesn't take long. The longest part, believe it or not, is cooking the tomatoes down. You don't want to do it super fast over a super high heat, but I'll show you all that in just a minute. Stay tuned. Guys, I have a bit of a correction to make. In the chili powder seasoning, or chili seasoning, there's 5 tablespoons of chili powder, 1.5 tablespoons of paprika, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a quarter teaspoon of cayenne. I omitted the garlic powder and cumin. There is cumin in the chili powder, so you do not have to add it, but I did last time, and that's the one my husband said was delicious. In the pot, I already have onions and bell peppers sauteed in olive oil. I saute them slowly until there's a little brown at the bottom of the pan, and I added all the seasoning to that. I think before I said that I added it to the meat. Do it before, let it cook down a little bit. I'm actually going to saute that a little bit before I add the tomatoes. When I did the half batch, I added 2 cans. if I'm going to do a double batch, of course I need to add 4. I need to double that as well. So next, after this sautés for just a little bit, so until you start smelling it. It doesn't have to go really long. I'm not toasting these by any means, but after this saute just a second, right about now, I'm going to start adding these. This is 1 can, 2 cans. I wonder if I'm zoomed. That seems like a tight shot. 3 cans and 4 cans. You do not have to add cayenne pepper. You do not have to add the cumin that's already in the chili powder. You can add more cayenne pepper. You can add more salt. It just, I don't feel that it needs it. And my husband said it was the best chili I ever made. I'm going to keep saying that. Now, this is a lot. This is 29 times 2 is what? 58? Is that right? I'm having trouble with math right now. 58 ounces of tomatoes. This is going to cook down, and I'll show you what it looks like, but it should be reduced by about half or even almost 2/3. So I went ahead and added the meat here. A couple of notes on cooking the tomatoes down. I would not drain the juice out of the tomatoes first, because you're going to be cooking tomatoes down for a while and you don't want them to burn. You will have to, even with the juice in there, you will have to stir the tomato and onions and seasonings every few minutes. I would put it on about medium, 6 or 7 if you're having numbers on your stove, medium high, and then as you're cooking and the juice cooks out, turn it down. I've already added my meat here, and you see this is already looking pretty chili-ish. I have 2 cups of water here, and how much water depends on how much water you add depends on 2 things. One, how much water or rule number 1, make sure your battery is charged before you try to do a multi-segment cooking tutorial. What I was going to say is that the 2 things you need that will determine how much water you add are 1, how much water you cook out of the tomatoes, and 2, how thin or runny you want your chili. I don't add flour or masa to my chili after it's done. I don't really see a need to. It tastes just as good without it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what it would look like when it's finished. So that wasn't a huge deal. I do want to take the time to encourage you to like my video here on Facebook and on YouTube. Share my videos on Facebook and on YouTube, and subscribe. Also, comment on the videos. I have no idea what you guys think, what you guys want, unless you tell me. If you want to see more food, if you want to see more food hauls, if you want to see more of me rambling, if you want to see more of the toddler or the hubs, just let me know. Thanks for watching.